with my last video about the antique Indian chairs, we are going to wax our own fabric so that we can make cushions. So here you can see the old cushions. They've seen better days. The fabric is not looking great. So yeah, new fabric that can be resistant to wind, weather, and a certain amount of rain. What we need for this, we'll walk through now. The most basic of items, obviously, is beeswax. I've got pallets. That makes it easier to melt them down. They usually come in yellow or white. This is the more whitish version. This will only make a difference if you have a very light fabric. So that's number one. Technically, in terms of wax, that is all that you need. But the downside of if you only use this, if you iron it on, it can stay white, it can start cracking. So usually what you want to do is you want to mix something else in that. That could be either glycerin, that could be turpentine, that could be linseed oil, or all of the above. By the way, I'm occasionally going to look over here if you have any questions that I can answer them. So for this mixture, I'm going to use linseed oil for the most simple reason that I have it. So these are our ingredients. What else do you need? So the way to melt this is a double boiler system. In case you're not familiar with that, what that means is you get a saucepan and you fill it with hot water. And whatever you want to melt, you put into a glass jar and you place into that so that the heat source doesn't directly touch it. Then you just let it melt on low heat because you want to make sure that you don't exceed the limit of the temperature of these things. So beeswax is usually around 65–70%. You don't want to heat it more than that. So leave your settings on your stove or your stove on low. Once you've melted this, the other things that you'll want are an applicator. In this case, I've taken a similar to a wax brush. So I didn't find a proper wax brush, so this is for varnish. The good thing about this is it's natural bristles. That makes it easier to apply it onto the fabric and to massage it basically into the fabric. The other things is you want is an iron. Alternatively, you can use a hairdryer or a heat gun. I prefer the iron because it allows me more selective heat application, and also it's just not as noisy. And for that, then you want to use a baking paper so that you don't mess up your iron. Alternatively, you could also put some aluminium foil on top of it to cover it, so not to mess up your iron. But I have a shop iron, so I don't really care as much, but I'm still using a grease paper. So I've got my mixture already on the stove. So to prepare everything, because it usually takes, depending on how much you're melting, 20 to 30 minutes to melt everything down. So you can already see that I've done half of the fabric here. This is canvas fabric, so it's pretty thick, so that means it needs a lot of wax to absorb it. If you take a regular cotton fabric, and I generally would recommend that you either take a cotton or a canvas fabric. If you take a regular cotton, then it doesn't need as much, but this one I've basically done 2 applications of wax, and it still has a couple of areas where I will need to patch. But I'm going to turn the fabric around so that I can show you how to do it from scratch. So let me just clear the area here and then get my wax, and then we get started. Also, guys, don't be shy. Let me know if you have any questions. Oh, and another useful tip, if you fold your fabric double, because I obviously need a lot, you're less likely to get a mess, because whatever seeps through in terms of wax will automatically already end up on your other side, so that just helps you get more out of your beeswax basically. Hello and welcome to the channel. Glad to have you here. Okay, I'm just going to run inside. I'll be back in 30 seconds to get our mixture. Alrighty, I'm back. So as I said earlier, this is basically your double boiler setup. You have your liquid in a glass jar, you have hot water in a saucepan, and you melt this. I'm basically leaving this in here so my liquid stays liquid for as long as possible, because obviously it will want to revert back into its natural state, which is solid. Another bonus tip: if you iron your fabric beforehand so it's a bit warmer, it makes it easier to apply your beeswax. To another person. So as I said, if there's any questions, do let me know. And also on another note, I am for the first time doing my live on a vertical format rather than horizontal. If there's one thing you prefer over the other, do let me know, because I'm still experimenting with this. Okay, so I'm just going to iron the fabric, warm it up a little bit. And I'm starting in the middle so I don't have to move the camera around, and you can see what I'm doing. A bit louder. Okay, I will try. I don't want to yell too much because I do have neighbors, sadly. So is anyone familiar with waxed jackets? The main brand that does them, that is famous for them, is called Bob. They're English and they make great jackets. So what I am doing here on fabric that is going to be for cushions, you can also do on jackets. You can do it on pants. If you've ever seen these little cheesecloths instead of Tupperware, you can do those. Those are really, really nice as well, if you know what I'm talking about. Okay, you understand. Glad to hear. Okay, I leave my iron on. I put it to the side. And now, very simply, dunk your brush and then just go crazy. And you will see how this now turns white. Don't worry about this, because this is just the beeswax drying. And that's what we need our iron later on for, with our baking paper. And as I said, because this fabric is very thick, I'm going to end up having to do 2-3 coats of what I'm doing here. We have a Burberry coat, yes. As long as it's not a synthetic fabric, you want to be using anything that is natural. Like, as I said, cotton canvas, that works, because you need to iron and apply heat to this. If you do that on synthetic fabric, you will melt it. But yeah, basically you can make anything water resistant to a degree with this technique. And I hope you can properly see now the effect this has as it dries. And as you can see, I have no rhyme or reason to my madness, and I'm just massaging it into the fabric. No, it will not necessarily be difficult to iron on a coat, because on a coat you have plenty of flat surfaces. Your front is flat, your back is flat, and for the sleeves you usually have special ironing tables that are slimmer that you can stick into a sleeve, and that would make it easier. You could theoretically, if you don't have one of those, improvise and just lie your sleeve flat down and iron it that way, or alternatively use a hairdryer for those tricky areas. That might actually be, when we're talking as far as jackets go, easier. Okay, now that we have a certain area, usually I would do the entire fabric first and then iron it, but because I want to explain it to you and show you how the process goes, I'm gonna just do this area and then I show you the next step. Okay, now we just simply take our sheet, and it can be as big or as little as you want. And now what we want to do is iron this. Hello to another person. Thanks for joining. So the thing we want to do with this now is we just want to iron this. The only thing, make sure you don't leave your iron in one place for too long, because otherwise it will leave marks, and those are very hard to get out. So just keep a steady movement, and what happens now is you will remelt the wax. That way it really penetrates and goes into the fabric. As you can see here on the paper, you see how it liquefies again. And usually how I see whether or not this is done is when I go over it, there comes a point when it has saturated the fabric and will have seeped through, and then it will revert back to the paper form like that. So you can see it really nicely here, how this is wet. And now it isn't anymore. I hope it shows in the camera, but you can see it here as I get closer to the front, how it liquefies. And then as I keep applying heat, the wax seeps into the fabric, gets absorbed, and then when I take it off, you will see how the fabric is patchy. This is, as I said, because this is heavy canvas, and it just needs more to fully absorb. Seems to be relaxing work, yes. You definitely need a little bit of patience for it, but all things considered, it's not a really difficult thing to do. And as I said, you can apply it to a bunch of projects. So I definitely want to get a lighter cotton fabric as well, so that I can make these little cheesecloths, because they make a really nice fabric. It's not expensive to do. So for example, the beeswax that I got is half a kilo. It is actually medical grade, which means you could, whatever leftovers I have, I could turn, for example, into lipstick, you know. And yeah, so that cost me, I want to say 15, 16, 17 euro. So for the amount, like, I will need the entire pack for this 1.5 meters of fabric. But as I said, if you have a light cotton, it's not going to take as much, and it makes for great presents, and it's just a nice thing. Oh yes, thank you for reminding me. So I just got asked what kind of temperature I use for the iron. Very important. I should have mentioned this earlier, so sorry for that. You want the maximum temperature of heat, but you want no steam. No steam at all, maximum heat, and then just take your time. As you see, the fabric here is entirely clear already. Here it isn't entirely. So yeah, and then when I finished all of this, where you can see that it's just a little corner here because I don't want to go too close and then mess up my iron, I just lift it off and place it here. And now you can actually see, so this is what I want, these really dark areas. That is my goal, right? So this is where I want this is the fabric being fully saturated. And as you can see, I applied it really heavily, but you can definitely see how much more I need to use. And then I just move my paper, and then I do the same thing. But yeah, as I said, it's just a thing of a bit of patience. And the next step will be sewing up my pillows. So ideally what I'm going to do is, once I sewed up the pillows, I will re-wax it a little bit as I need it. And iron it a bit, because another thing that I'm going to show you now with the fabric, once it creases, depending on the color, so someone asked, depending on the color, you iron more, put more wax. Yes, I will definitely do another round of waxing, because as you can see here, it's very uneven, it's very patchy. That is because it's thick fabric and it needs a lot of wax to absorb and to be fully water resistant. If you remember at the beginning of the video, I showed you the other side that I had already done, and that was also still a bit patchy, even though I had already done 2 rounds of wax. And as you can see here from the paper, I must have definitely applied a little bit more wax on this side, because it's taking more time to absorb into the fabric. So yeah, basically you repeat this process as many times as you need or want to. You apply your wax, you iron it in until you're satisfied with the amount of wax that you have on your fabric. But this is taking a bit more than expected, but let's lift it a bit. And usually the other thing you can see is, if I try to lift it, you see how tacky it still is. That means it still needs more heat and it still needs more absorption. So we just keep going until that paper is clear again. Also, really good questions. Thank you for asking. Because it's always difficult to try to remember everything that you have in your head and that you technically already know, and that you're trying to communicate and pass on. Also, now I'm getting sweaty. It's warm. At least it's a bit cloudy, so it's not too hot. Okay, let's see how this is going. Okay, so I could iron this a bit more. As you see, it's sticky, but here you can clearly see the difference, right? Here I have enough coverage, so I wouldn't wax this area again, but here I clearly need to put some more on. So I'll show you that procedure as well. So my wax has already started to heat up a little bit, to dry up. So if you get flakes like that, don't worry. because again, you're going over it with an iron, so you're going to melt the wax anyway, so I'm not too bothered by that. And worst case, if you feel like your liquid is too hard, you just put it back on the stove and you warm it up a bit more again. Okay, I'm just going to show you on this small patch here. And for another great question, I have so many great questions here today. I'm really, really happy about this. So the question is, for cleaning this material, how do you clean this? Basically, you just need water. You just take a damp cloth. You don't like spritz it down, but you just take a damp cloth, and you can use a little bit of soap, but honestly, you don't really need to, unless you use it for the kitchen, for like a cheesecloth. Like these ones are going to live outside, and the only way I would clean them is with a damp cloth. If I use them for the kitchen, for food, then yes, I would use a damp cloth and a bit of soap. Okay, let's do this. Okay, same procedure as before. I'm melting everything down. And you see all the bigger bits I had are also molten. Where's Bob? Excellent question. I haven't seen him today. In case you didn't know and you're new here, Bob is my balcony lizard, who usually makes an appearance and watches from some corner or another. I fed him a pear the other day. He annihilated that thing. Okay, let's see. There we go. You see the difference? Yes, I always like to look at him too. So yeah, here you can see that was the area that I did. So it's dark now as well. So you can see how many times I need to apply this. And here's what I showed you on the other side. So basically when you do this, you will get this aged look. I don't know if you can properly see it, right? But that again, that is why you want an oil in there, like linseed or turpentine or glycerin, so to keep this softer and to have less of this effect. But again, I can just iron over this and it basically goes back to new. But also, it's part of its charm. Thank you for the compliments and much appreciated. Anyway, are there any more questions to this? Now is your chance. Any last minute questions? Because I'm going to continue all of this and I'm assuming you might want to watch me work for the next couple of hours, because this is definitely going to take me a few hours to finish, because I also need to do the other side. I guess that is a no, in which case I am going to let you guys go. I'm hoping to finish everything in a couple of days, and then there's going to be a proper YouTube video up on the whole process and to see the finished process, and there I will also show you, I will run some water over the fabric and show you that it actually works and that I'm not just making things up. In any case, thank you so much for joining. I always appreciate these opportunities to actually, get to talk to you, show you a bit more in depth. And if you missed it, you can watch it in my live playlist. So thank you, thank you. So on that note, I'm going to say thank you for joining once again, and I hope to catch you here soon. And bye bye.